The Portuguese settled in Mozambique, and we're introduced to this little tiny fiery chili called the African bird's eye chili now, but also known as Peri-Peri. And the Portuguese have an interesting way of cooking their chicken. They do what's called a spatchcock, which means they crack the back and clip the wings so they can flat fit on a grill, unlike most whole chickens you see, which is rotisserie.
So they came looking for you. You were at Baja Fresh out in California. Yeah. What attracted you? Baja Fresh was a big name. It was a risk to leave that and come take over their U.S. operations and help them launch here. What attracted you to the company?
I remember sitting in the interview and being asked about, what are some of your business philosophies? And as I talked about things such as the importance of culture and the value of having a great team, having a little bit of fun where you work, that profit isn't necessarily the goal, it's the outcome of doing the right thing. And I'm saying all these, what I deem sort of wild ideas, and they were like, that's exactly right. That's exactly what we believe. The chicken's important, but it's about the people that make the chicken. And so the alignment of our business values, if you will, and the fact they were willing to give me the corner office and a lot of autonomy, and what was just a phenomenal brand was certainly worth the risk of moving across the country, and I haven't regretted a moment of it.
So now, Nando's finds you and has you take over as U.S. CEO, because they've got big plans here, and started in Washington, D.C. They had their pick of any place in the country. Why? It was 2008, Chinatown was the first location.
Yep.
Why did they pick this area for their starting location?
But I think what really tipped D.C. into the first position was the fact that it's also a very well-traveled, well-educated, maybe a little adventurous marketplace. And if you're going to try and open a Portuguese African spicy chicken chain, you need people that maybe are a little more willing to try something different and new, as opposed to, well, is it a steak or is it seafood?
The growth here has been phenomenal, but what's the map look like for the rest of the U.S. and your plans to expand?
If you look at where Nando's has been really successful, it's not a local phenomenon. We plan to be a national chain, albeit we are growing at a very fast rate, 60–70%, but it's a moderate. We're not trying to, there's no quick exit strategy. We want to operate great restaurants for many, many years to come. So we will begin to go to other markets, set up a similar situation with a hub, and so that we'll open a lot of restaurants in that market. And we're currently looking at a number of other markets, including Chicago and Boston. But we plan to go to as many places as we can.
I have to say, I love the fact that in reading some of the press about this, New York City has been begging you all to come there, and you resisted to focus on this market. I'd like to think it's because we're just so much cooler than New York City. But again, why resist the lure of a place like New York City and concentrate your growth in this area?
I'll probably get in trouble for this entire answer, but I think the New York play is a little obvious. And I don't know that when you look at a long-term vision that certainly we'll be in New York someday. But I don't know that we need to be there today. It's expensive to do it. It's a bit risky. And it seems to me maybe a bit of a billboard.
What do you categorize this as? It's a sit-down restaurant. It's not fast food, but the prices are affordable. You're serving wine. Describe what this is.
Well, I think I remember when I first got to Nando's, I thought we need an elevator speech. We need a 30-second what are we? And as I spent time in the brand, I realized that some of the magic about what Nando's is that it isn't a 30-second conversation. It is an experience. You're exactly right. We're sort of a hybrid between fast casual and full service. So you pay at a counter, you pay before you eat. You order at the counter, but you're served your food on a plate. You have real silverware. We have beer and wine. We have a lovely environment. So it gives what I believe is the guest a lot of flexibility on how to use the brand. It can be a place for a quick business lunch. It can be takeout. It can also be date night.
You talked about how you liked the ethos of what Nando's represented, the belief in their people. There's also a big emphasis by the company on philanthropy. Sure. Tell us a little bit about that part of the company's ethos.
Well, I think one of the things we're trying to do is, and you see a lot of not-for-profits and different organizations trying to figure out how as a business do you not just make money and then donate, but how do you align your business with doing the right thing so that you have a financial profit along with a social profit? So one of my favorite groups that we're involved with pretty heavily is DC Central Kitchen. Obviously, as a restaurant, one of the main two things we have food and we have jobs. And it really is perfect alignment. So I think we've now had 10 different interns that have come out of the DC Central Kitchen program, done internships in our restaurant, and we've hired on full time.
What have you learned about managing people and the key to growing a good staff, keeping a good staff, and finding people who can work in a tough environment that's not the highest paying profession? How do you do that and motivate your people?
I think the most important piece for me is it's a journey. That's not an end game. There isn't we'll hire the right person and it's done. You've got to hire the right people, people that can and want to do what you're asking them to do. Then you've got to invest in them from a cultural standpoint, from a skill standpoint, and then you've got to follow up on that training, and you've got to be involved.
Talk to me about being the U.S. CEO, but still having global bosses and people. Well, I don't know. You tell me. Do you answer to others overseas, and what are the cultural differences that you sometimes have to overcome?
Certainly, I answer to people. I answer to our shareholders. We have 3 shareholders. We're privately held. I describe Nando's because we have a bit of a unique culture and a unique operating style, more of a collaboration than a corporation. So what we really try and do is collaborate, especially around the brand. Because we all have shared challenges, shared opportunities. So how do we as business leaders around the world best leverage the skills in other markets? I think the Nando's culture supersedes any sort of national culture differences. Although they do know, I mean, I'm the only guy with an American accent, and they say I am very typical American. So optimistic, I talk fast, talk loud, all that stuff. I get all of that.
We'll take that as a compliment. Burton Heiss, thanks so much for joining us on Washington Business Report.
I appreciate it.